Hi, this is James from Tabletop Gaming Guild, and today we're going to take a look at Endless Winter, Paleoamericans. This is a 1 to 4 player game published by Fantasia Games. In this game, you're going to be playing as a chieftain, and you're trying to have your tribe survive in the cold, unforgiving, ancient world and build up your civilization. Let's go ahead down the table. I'll give you a general idea how the game plays, and then we'll come back and I'll give you my final thoughts. Alright, so this is Endless Winter. Endless Winter, Paleoamericans, takes place in North America in around 10,000 BCE. Players guide at the development of their tribes across several generations, from nomadic hunter and gatherers to prosperous societies. Over the course of the games, tribes can migrate and settle new lands, establish cultural traditions, hunt megafauna, and build everlasting megaliths. In this game, it's going to go over 4 different rounds. In each of the 4 different rounds, you're going to be able to place 3 different workers. So you have 3 different turns that you're going to have. So in the total in the game, you're going to have 12 turns. So every turn in Endless Winter really does matter. A couple things I wanted to point out real quick is that the game does come with a solo mode. We're not going to go over that, but just know that it's available and it's a good solo mode. Also, it has 2 little sort of mini expansions that you can have inside the game. This one here lets the glaciers on the board up there, which I'll show you in a minute, actually have some resources on them, and these will actually just randomly go out on them, and they're pretty nice. So just know that those exist and that they can be used in the game. Also, the game comes with some pretty cool miniatures for your chieftains that you get during the game. Show some of these guys off here. They have a really good, impressive amount of detail on them too, which I was really happy about. And they come with this sort of brown wash here so they can highlight all the detail on the miniatures. Sort of gives them like a ivory look to them, which is pretty neat. And here's the last one here. And this board itself is set up for 4 players. Now, in the game itself, if you're going to set up for more or less, you're going to put more or less of the glaciers out there. So there'll be, with a lower player count, there'll be more glaciers on the board down there. With 4 player counts, you only have 3. So you can have up to 6, I believe, with the 2 player, and 3, I think, is a different number. But in the rule books in the front, it'll tell you exactly what you need to do for setup for that up there. And also note that the area here where you're going to build your megaliths, there's multiple different patterns that you can use throughout the game. I think probably at least a dozen that you can pick to use. They will matter a little bit for how you can score, but I will show you that when we get there. Like I said, the game takes over 4 rounds. At the end of the 4th round, whoever has the most points wins. And there's several different ways that you can score and win in the game. But before we go over that real quick, I'm going to go over a couple of the final startup things that are in this game that you have to do. First is, everyone has their own little personal deck of 9 cards for each of the different boards that you can select. So you'll get those out. In addition to that, everyone's going to either randomly, or you'll draft them, or however you want to do it, get a chieftain. Each of these chieftain have special abilities down on the bottom here, and you can pick which side that you want to use for the game. However, once you pick your side, that is the side that you have for the rest of the game. You'll also get one of these starting resources cards. These starting resources cards will show you what you start with. This gets 2 axes, 4 meat. You're going to get a tribe card from this location, so you get one of these guys right here, so it matches the symbol on the card itself. See a little better here. And then you also will get an animal that matches that type. So I got this really cool ground sloth. That's how the start card works. Starting resources card. Also, you'll randomly shuffle these up. They have a player turn order, which you'll place your little figurehead there, and it'll tell you what your starting cards are from your starting deck. And this is also acts as your little sort of player aid throughout the game. You'll get your player board. I set it up here for the amount of meat and axes I get. This is where I could put my little cave painting things that I don't remember what they're called off the top of my head. And here's your little camps, and here's your giant tent that you can place throughout the game. And here's your little tokens you're going to use to build your monoliths out on the board over there, which I'll get to in a little bit. All right, so in addition to that, these decks are all the same. These don't actually change. This is just a deck of these cards that you could pick up and put in your hand. They all do the same thing, and they all have the same thing for each of. They do different for each set, these little pile, but this all in this pile are all the same. So you can throughout the game get all these different tribesmen in here, and then you also have these seasons cards here. You're going to have, this is the first season, and you have a second season. You're going to put this card over top this second deck, so you know not to put those out, and you're going to put 8 of the first season out, and you can gain these cards throughout the game. Another thing to keep in mind is a lot of these cards have little point values that will matter at the end of the game. You'll get a point, whatever it says on the left here, for all the cards that you picked up throughout the game. So I have created my started hand, I have got my starting resources, and I'm ready to go, and I got the turn order over there. So what do you do on your turn? So on my turn, I'm going to take my chieftain or one of my 2 workers and place them in one of the 4 action spots above there. Those are the only places you can place your workers, but they do a lot of different things. Okay, so this track here is going to be 2 of the 4 ways that I can get points at the end of the game. The other ways that I could get points at the end of the game is going to be these cards right here, and these cards right here are going to give me the points that are listed on the side right here, if any, so this one will give me 1 point. The last way that I could get points at the end of the game is I could have sets of these animals. Each of these animals there's like multiple different sets. Some of them here will see here, some of them here are like any set where they have the little rainbow thing here. But either way, when I complete my sets at the end of the game, I will get points for however many I have. So this one has 10 in the deck here, it shows right here. And if I have 4 plus, I get 10 points, 3 I have 6 points, and 2 I have 3 points, and 1 I have 1 point. And each of these might have different numbers on the bottom here for however many, and have different requires for how many I need. Now that will only matter if I don't eat the animal. If I eat the animal, I'll turn it to the side. I will not get set scoring points at the end of the game. So that's it for end game scoring. Now what do? You could also get points throughout the game. Like I said, at certain points on this track you're going to get points. You can also pick up these cave paintings and get points at each of the Eclipse phases. You could get points for places that you are on the board up there, which I'll show you in a little bit, and so on and so forth. So you can gain points throughout the game. Some of these cards will give you points. Like this one here, you convert 1 meat into 2 axes and a point. So you can gain points throughout the game, and you're looking at the end game points also. So that's what your goal is throughout the game. What you're going to do then on your turn is you're going to, like I said, you'll have your chieftain and you'll have your 2 little workers, and you're going to pick one and you're going to put it, whether it's the chieftain or this worker here, and you're going to put it on one of these locations on the board. One thing I want to point out is if you do use your chieftain has a specific place that if you place it, it also gets a bonus. So if I place it in this location here that matches, so this one here, I will also gain an axe, which is pretty darn cool. So when you place your worker on here, what's going to end up happening is you're going to go down and do all these actions. So these top 2 here are infinite actions. Any actions on the cards that you can take are going to be 1 time. But these ones here you can do as many times as you want. I can chain an axe in to place one of my little my little camps down, and or I could spend labor to put a camp down, and then finally when I get to here I can spend 3 meat and 3 camps and change it into one of these bigger camps on the board. And I'll show you how to do that right now. Well, right before I do that, I also mentioned that if I'm the first one there, I'll go to this spot and I get a bonus action. In this case, I get to place one and move one camp. If I'm not the first one there and another player's there, then you go into this section right here, and if you go into this section right here, that's it. It showed you use that section. So the first one gets a bonus action to any one of these 4 columns. Sort of gives you an incentive to go where no one else has for your first turn, but you don't have to. It just depends on what your goal is on the game itself. So let's go ahead and we're going to look at the map here, and I'm going to show you some stuff about it and how it works. Okay, so this is the map up here. Notice that you start the game with a camp in each place. Now, several things to keep in mind with this location up here is that there's these little tiles right here, and these little tiles right here are at the Eclipse Phase. You will gain whatever there is on here if you control the area. Now, throughout this game, you're going to do actions where you place your camps. If you place a camp, it has to go into this middle section here. If you move a camp, you can move a camp out here, and you can use as much movement points as you have. So if I have 2, I could go all the way over here. And I'm looking at this spot because in the Eclipse Phase, I'll get to move up one of my little totem things. That's great. Now, when I said that you could put a large camp out by replacing 3, what that means is in order to do that, you have to have 3 and adjacent, so these like this in 3 different adjacent areas, but not in this middle camp. That doesn't count. And when you do that, you could place your camp in the middle here, and you'll remove these and put them back on your player board. And that's important for a couple different reasons, and mainly on limiting of resources, and we'll go over that in a second. But know that once you place this large camp out, it has presence in all of the locations around it. So this large camp has presence in 3 different locations. So that means that I can have control of 3 different locations potentially, unless another player comes out. Now, each of these camps is worth 1, and the large camps are worth 2. So if a player puts their camp here, I still have control of this because it's 2 to 1. Now, a player could put their large camp here if they wanted to, and that would negate my area here. So if a purple large camp was here, then they would be 3 to 2, and they would have control of that. So that's basically what you're doing on this board. You're using those actions to be able to place camps out, move camps, which is very important. Now, let's go ahead back up to this board here. I'm going to explain some more stuff on what it means to pay for these different things. So if we're looking at this board here, we went over this action here, and I said you could pay labor to move a camp, or you can pay axes to place a camp, and you can do that as many times as you want. And then you go down here and do your one-time action where you can play 3 meat and replace 3 villages to put a large camp down. That's great. We'll go over those other couple spaces here real quick, and then I'm going to show you what this all means on your player board itself. All right, so this one here will allow me to pay 1 axe and 1 labor to gain a tribes card. Now, those tribes cards are the non-season cards that are down at the bottom of this board down here. And then I could do that as much as I want. And then mine would go down here, and I could spend a meat to be able to bury, not bury. I can bury a card, and I can pick up a tribesman card, but the tribesman card has to go in my discard pile instead. If I'm the first to the location, I can move up my totem and bury another card. This location here, I can spend 3 labor to get a season card, which is really cool. That's going to be the first season or second season, depending on where I'm at on this track here. Down here, I can pay a meat and an axe to get one of these cave painting things, and each of these are going to give me scoring objectives that I want to go towards. Let's see if I can get this in focus here. we'll show you this in a second, scoring objectives that I can get on each Eclipse Phase. So those are really important. Then if I'm the first one here, I get an axe and a meat. Finally over here, I can spend 1 labor to place out 2 animals, which I'll show you in a second here. I could spend an axe and a labor to gain an animal. I can eat an animal, turning it to its side, and then here I can gain another animal if I'm the first one there. So those are those spots here. Let's go ahead and I'm going to pan out a little bit here, and I'm going to show you these season cards and the tribes cards that you can get. All right, so swinging back to the gaining of tribes cards, each of these is going to have a different symbol, and you'll notice that these symbols match here. And like I said, all these tribesman cards are the same in these decks, but each of these do different things. And we're going to go over why these cards are important in a second, but also notice that you have tons of these season cards to get. Not all of them have points for the season cards. All the tribesman cards have points, but some of them do more powerful actions and stuff throughout the game. Now that I have one of these cards that I can get in focus here, these little cave painting or whatever cards are really cool. They will give you scoring objectives. Now you're only able to have 3 of them throughout the game, and one of the things I didn't explain when you do these different things, how this affects your player board. Now your player board itself has several different things on it. Whoops. So you're going to have these camps, you're going to have these places you can place the cave painting. If I, whoops, I'm knocking all these things off. If I place a cave painting, or I'm sorry, if I place a large camp down, I will get to draw a card. When I place a cave painting down, I get these benefits here. However, I can only have 3 of them for the entire game. And these only occur as scoring objectives during the Eclipse Phase. Same here. This also affects your game. Yeah, you will have oh my gosh, you have a limited amount of resources, so you can't have more than 5 axes, and currently I can't have more than 5 meat. However, as I place these camps out, I can get more and more meat, which is very helpful. And with these monolith things, when I place them out, if I place there's 2 in each section, I will get the bonuses here if I uncover those. So that is how the player board itself works. Now, one thing I did want to point out here is if I eat my animal. So if I eat my animal, I will turn my animal to the side. So this sloth right here, and remember that if you eat your animal, you can no longer use it for scoring points. However, I will get an axe and 4 food if I eat this sloth. So that is very, very helpful. Now on this animal board over here, when I do things on the animal board, so it said I could put out 2 cards, I would simply, if there's an open slot here, I put out a card, and then I could pick one up. Now if I pick one up, I would just put it in my little stack right here, and I can either eat it or save it to the end of the game for extra points. Now, that's all fine and good. A couple things we didn't explain yet. One is cool things that you can do when you place your workers. Additional place that you can place your worker outside these 4 slots, and what you do with these cards. So an additional place you could place your worker is here, and you could place your worker here so that you can basically eat one of these animals, draw a card, and in the Eclipse Phase it'll be worth 1.5 labor. So this is the 5th place that you can place a worker. Also, when you place workers, you can play these cards. And these cards have a couple different things that going on them. The main thing you're going to pay attention is going to be across the top here, and these are going to be labor. You can have up to 1.5, half, or whatever. So this is 1.5 labor. If I use this card on my turn, let's say I went to this location here, and I wanted to keep moving my camps out to farther, I could play this card down, and I'll place them up here so I know. I have this little board a little scrunched here, but I'll place it up here so I know that I played it. I'll gain 1.5 labor that I can spend, and I can keep doing that, so I could put out more and more if I want. Okay? Additionally, so right here, I already have 1.5 plus 1 is 2.5, plus 1.5 is going to be 4, so I can move up to, I can use up to 4 labor. Additionally, some of these cards have things on the bottom here. This one here is just going to give me straight up labor. This here has no use because I didn't play it during the Eclipse phase. So this one here will give me 1 meat. I could do conversion 1 meat to an axe right now if I wanted to. And again, this Eclipse thing won't matter because I played it now. Any cards that you play throughout your rounds will go into your discard pile right here before the Eclipse phase. And we'll go over Eclipse phase here last. The last thing I wanted to go over before we do the Eclipse phase here is going to be this monolith board here. So let's go ahead and look at that real quick. All right, so this is the monolith board. As you place things down, you'll have these gray and you'll have the colored monoliths. You have to place the gray monoliths down first, and gray monoliths are the only ones that can go in these starting spots. And you get the reward down below. This one happens to be place another monolith, so I could place another monolith. These outer locations here, when I play stuff, like this one gives me 2 meat, this one lets me draw 2 cards, this lets me put out an animal and gain an animal, all sorts of really cool stuff. One thing I want to point out though that's really cool is once I have 4 of them down, if you place one on top, you will gain 4 points, and every person's color underneath will gain a point. So in this case, I would gain 4 points for red because I placed it over 4 of them, and then I would get 5, 6 points. But if blue or, I'm sorry, green or yellow or purple was here, they would also get points. So that's a cool way of getting points throughout the game, and also resources. That's in a nutshell how the monolith works. The final thing we need to go over is the Eclipse phase. In the Eclipse phase, the first thing everyone can do before we do scoring for the Eclipse phase is they could take a look at their hand. And whatever is in their hand, they can play down, face down. So I could play as many cards as I want face down. The primary reason I'm doing this is because whoever has the most labor will go first the next round. Whoever has the next will go second, third, and fourth. If there's ever ties, the person's farthest behind will win and move up. Also, at the start of the round, I will also gain the bonuses listed here. Now, so this red player could place out a monolith, the purple player could get a card, put their token up, get an axe, get a meat. Now, if I'm the first player, I can always take this or any one other one underneath it. Same with the second player. They can draw a card, put out a token, get an axe or a meat. This player here can put out or move up their token on here, or they can get an axe or a meat. So the primary thing we're looking at is what do I want to do next place, what do I want for my turn placement, and if I have any cards in my hand at all to do anything, I might place them down to have a lot of labor to move up on the track to where I want to be. Additionally, once these flip over and we add them up and we decide that, there's these eclipse symbols, so any of the ones that I put down, the eclipse that action will fire off for me too. So there's advantages to it. Like if I have this one down during the eclipse phase, I'll get an axe. So those are pretty cool. Additionally, I will also get any resources or whatever or points that for any areas that I control on the board up there. And I also score for any of the cave paintings in the eclipse phase that I had out that I have some. I meet the criteria for. Additionally, if I put a worker over here to rest, any workers that I have over the rest in the Eclipse phase is going to be worth 1.5 labor as shown on here. And that, in a nutshell, is the game. The game's going to be tracked. So you got the action phases, you got the Eclipse phase, you got the action phase, you got the Eclipse phase. So this would be round 2. Into round 3, you're going to clear out all of these season 1 cards, and you can put out the season 2 cards. And then you're going to keep going until we get to the end of round 4. And at the end of the round 4, we'll do a final eclipse and then scoring. So I know we went over a lot, and this was just an overview of the game itself. But in a nutshell, this is going to be how you play Endless Winter. Let's go ahead back up to the table here, and I will give you my final thoughts on this game. All right, so this is actually a really solid worker placement game. I really was a little concerned before I played the game on how few worker placement places there actually are on the board. There's only 4. And I guess you could hit the 5th if you consider that you can rest, but there's really not a lot of places to go. And I wasn't sure about the incentive of going to a location first, because there's only 4 places, and if you have 4 players, then the 4 players will probably all go to the 4 different places to get this bonus, but it actually doesn't happen because you have like your goals in mind. I also appreciated how straightforward the iconography is on this game. You can pick it up pretty easily, and there is a nice section on the back of the book that just goes over the iconography just in case you forget. And I really liked how fluid the game plays. You only actually have 12 different placements throughout the game, so you don't have a lot of different things that you can do, so each of those have to count. So you're going to have to develop your strategy and pretty much execute it as you go by, or as the game goes by. You could pivot a little bit, but know in general that you have to have an overall idea of how you want to progress with those games. And it's really important to know which sort of thing you're aiming for. Like, are you trying to do the area control thing on the main map board, or are you trying to move up your totem along the burial tracks to try to get endgame scoring on there? You're probably going to have to do the burial tracks no matter what, because depending on what you're trying to do, those are worth a lot of points. So getting a lot of points for your meat and axes might be really cool, but if you're spending them all the time, then maybe you want to look at burying your cards, because that helps your deck, thins out the starter cards out of your deck, it makes them stronger as the game goes by, and you can get a lot of points for those. Or you can do this set collection thing and get those animals and see if you can pile up those points. So a lot of different decisions you can make throughout the game, which I appreciate, and there's several avenues to victory, which is very important for a worker placement game in general. Component quality on this game is amazing. This is a Kickstarter game, so the minis with a little wash are really cool, really nice detail to them. It has an amazing insert that it didn't show off that fits everything together really nicely and neatly in this box. And I think, which I haven't tried yet, I think all the expansions will fit in this base game box too, which is really nice. It does have some room in there in the insert for them, so I'm supposing that will work out. I like the big wood chunky bits for the monolith for each of the players. Those are really nice. I like the camps. I like the dual layer boards, player boards that you have. Those are really nice, so it fits everything in nice and snugly, and they don't, like, if you don't have to worry about bumping that board or anything like that. And the cardboard thickness is really nice. So overall component quality for Endless Winter is really good. Gameplay is good. It has a good bit of replayability to it. I'm wondering, I don't know if I haven't gotten a ton of plays in, but I'm wondering if over time it's sort of, with the lack of worker placement spaces on the board, if it starts to get a little stale. However, there's a lot of expansions for this game, so that'll probably spice it back up. Overall, very solid worker placement game. If you like the theme and you like worker placement games, this is definitely a game you're going to want to check out. And that is Endless Winter's Paleoamericans, and my thoughts on it. Thank you for watching.